What's going on?
So, remember back in 2016, and people were saying, I think Elizabeth Warren was hoping she'd get the VP nod from Hillary Clinton. I think that's why she didn't back Bernie Sanders. I think she was holding out for that VP nod. Well, Elizabeth Warren said she would have accepted an offer to be Hillary Clinton's running mate. So it was
What a progressive.
It was heavily rumored in 2016. It was never corroborated. But she's come out and essentially said, yes, Warren told writer Joshua Green in Bloomberg Businessweek cover story to the question of would she have accepted if Hillary had asked her to be a running mate. Now, this gets into speculative territory, going back, sort of almost revisiting the 2016 race, but I've always looked at it this way. It wasn't reasonable to expect that Elizabeth Warren would have been the VP pick, as strategically advantageous as she would have been as a VP pick. I think that would have bolstered the campaign a huge amount.
I think Clinton
probably
would have won. She would have won.
Instead, she went with Tim Kaine, who's a very milquetoast, centrist, corporatist Democrat that nobody knew really or liked.
The predecessor to Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
He was the predecessor to Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
I'd like
he
some
was
avocado
the head
toast. Hold the avocado.
Right. So he was running the DNC. He was the chairperson of the DNC. And it seems like, boy, Hillary really wanted to make sure that she ended up getting the nomination and was in the midst of, all that coalition building and getting all that institutional support to the point that people were calling it the coronation of Hillary Clinton. Wouldn't it have been interesting if she'd promised something to the former head of the DNC who unilaterally appoints his or her successor? Wouldn't it have been interesting if you'd promised that person something to nominate or actually appoint Hillary Clinton's former campaign chairman, former campaign leader, to be the head of the DNC? What would you promise that person for such an important appointment? Seems like the VP spot would be a pretty big thing to promise that person. So looking back, Elizabeth Warren, I guess, probably feels a little bit used, thinking that she was probably going to get that VP nod because it would have been such a strategic thing, and held out on endorsing Bernie Sanders and ultimately hurt his chances and in my estimation, in large part, prevented him from having the kind of clout that he could have had in 2016. This is the kind of thing that those of us are mad about, right? When we go back and revisit 2016, the overt rigging little bits at a time along the way, and we wonder why Bernie supporters during the DNC convention were chanting at Elizabeth Warren, "We trusted you." Because she didn't endorse Bernie. And her politics, everything about it indicated that if there was someone for her to endorse between Hillary and Bernie, it should have been Bernie.
But it wasn't the case.
This seems to indicate maybe why it wasn't the case.
So we've been talking a little bit about, again, we want to reiterate, Warren is still, of all the Democrats in Congress, one of the better ones. I think we can reticently say that and be accurate.
I can agree.
And I would happy to see her stay in the Senate. But this is when I say she's not a fighter and she doesn't have that leadership that I see in Sanders or Tulsi. This is what I mean. That she is I can get a better position. She's position jockeying, and I think that's damning in its own right. But I think even more so, which Paul I think alluded to, is that Elizabeth Warren was strung along that, hey, Warren, if you go with Hillary, you might become the VP, and that'll be pretty cool. You get to be the VP. That's even worse, because that means she can be easily manipulated in a situation that should be obvious she'll never get. Because just like Paul said, what other reason would Tim Kaine make that appointment to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and do the things that he did, if not to make that deal? And we learned from leaked emails that she had already picked him months before she announced.
It was already settled.
So if Warren actually thought she was going to be VP and went along with it, I have a bigger issue that she believed Hillary Clinton and didn't see the obvious writing on the walls, and even less than her agreeing to it in the first place. Both are damning, but one is damning in a power up mobility sense, and the other is damning in a, I don't want a president that's going to get fooled so easily.
Yeah. So speaking of fools, Let's just rewind back the clocks way back to 2016 when Warren was really campaigning with the Clinton campaign. This was after the primaries. This was after the convention. And there was that talk, like Paul mentioned earlier, and like how Daniel mentioned earlier, that Warren could be potentially the vice president for Clinton's campaign and her running mate. And Wall Street wrote a letter to Clinton. Remember, you can find this on YouTube. It's on social media. You can find it. You find the video. And basically telling Clinton, do not pick Warren or we will not support you at all. And Clinton went in front of the cameras, basically made a statement to the media, surrounded by the press all around her, saying that no one's going to tell her what to do. She will make her own choices and that she could do whatever she sees fit. But then, surprise, surprise, what happens? She picks Tim Kaine. That whole song and dance. So, Daniel, you are right that Warren is going to be pulled and strung along. If she's willing to believe the song and dance from Clinton, imagine her as president. Who will be surrounding her? What kind of lobby groups will be around her? She did say in that interview with Cenk Uygur that she'd take corporate PAC money. She said that. So she could be easily manipulated to a lot of things. I mean, look, is she better than some of the other corporate Democrats? Absolutely. But when she says she has a plan for certain things, I just can't help but notice that you're copying and pasting Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm. She needs a strong leader to show her the way, and then she'll do good work. But yeah she can't lead in that way.
Kalita says, I heard the people in her district are not all that happy about her, though. And in fact, that's true. This particular article that is very critical of Elizabeth Warren and the positions that she took throughout 2016 comes from the Boston Globe, which is her hometown newspaper. So yes, indeed, her constituents are not the happiest people on earth with her.
Yeah.